welcome back to Maniacal Reader. Long time no see. It's been a couple of weeks since I've uploaded a video, but that's because I got sick with a really bad cold at the beginning of February, and I was sick for 2 weeks, so I wasn't feeling well at all. But my cold is over now, and you'll be seeing me a lot more consistently. Today I'm going to talk to you about all the books that I read in January. The first book I read in January was Nightlife by Kittredge. This is the first book in an urban fantasy series. It follows this woman named Luna Wilder, who is a cop, but she also happens to be a werewolf. Luna is an insuli werewolf, which means she travels without a pack. Luna also has a younger cousin named Sunny, whom she looks after, and Luna and Sunny come from a family heritage of witches. But Luna doesn't really practice witchcraft like the rest of her family, and she has resentment towards her grandmother because her grandmother is mad that her daughter mated with a werewolf in order to create Luna. So Luna's half witch, half werewolf. I liked the world in this book. It was interesting, and when I first met the main character, I thought she was kick-ass and feisty. Over time, her character just became annoying. As the novel progressed, though, Luna became mean towards her co-workers even when they were trying to help her. I just found her to be too bitchy and angry towards everyone pretty much, and this made me dislike her a lot. I also didn't believe in the relationship in this book between Luna and Dimitri, who's also a werewolf. To me, the relationship didn't feel genuine. I felt that they didn't have enough interactions for them to warrant having sex near the end of the book, so I didn't believe the relationship at all. It was too insta-love to me. Because I ended up not really liking the main character and didn't find the relationship believable, I ended up giving this book 2 stars. The world and the plot was interesting in this book. Over time, I just got too fed up with the main character. I read reviews of the future books in this series, and I've heard that Luna as a main character gets even worse in the other books in the series, so I chose not to continue this series. The next book I read in January was Once We Were by Kat Zhang. This is the second book in the Hybrid Chronicles trilogy, and this is a YA dystopian trilogy. This trilogy follows these 2 girls named Addie and Eva, and these 2 girls are souls trapped in one body. And in this society, over a certain period of time, one soul is supposed to disappear for the dominant soul to take over. Addie is the dominant soul, and Eva is the recessive soul. But since Eva didn't disappear at a young age like she was supposed to, Addie and Eva are known as a hybrid, and in this society, hybrids aren't acceptable. I also gave this book 3 stars. In this sequel, Addie and Eva are working with the people that are known as the Underground. The Underground is a group of people who are working to make sure hybrids are more acceptable in the society and are working against the corrupt government. This book started off slow because now that Addie and Eva have broken out of the government facility, they're on the run, and they spend the start of the book trapped in an apartment and just analyzing their day-to-day lives. I found this part of the book slow, and the action of the book didn't really pick up until halfway through. So this book did start off slow, but once it did get going, I was interested. In this book we have certain members of the group questioning others and what the important goal of the group is. We also get to see development in Addie and Eva's relationship. There's some tension between them in this book and misunderstandings about each other's relationships. I liked seeing a different dynamic between them in this second book. Overall, I enjoyed this book, but the beginning was slow. That's why I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Echoes of Us. This is the 3rd book in the Hybrid Chronicles trilogy. In this book we have Addie and Eva infiltrating another government facility to make changes in the government and try to make their society a better place. They ended up accomplishing this goal, and I thought that this book was a really good finale. It wrapped up things nicely. I also enjoyed different family dynamics in this book, since we have appearances from Addie and Eva's family. Overall, I did like this trilogy, but I don't see myself rereading it. That's why I gave all 3 books in this trilogy 3 stars. Next up, I have Partials by Dan Wells. This is the first book in a YA post-apocalyptic trilogy. It follows this girl named Kira, who lives in a post-apocalyptic New York. In this world, a deadly virus has decimated the human race, and humans believe it's the Partials' fault. Partials are genetically engineered beings that look almost identical to humans, but they're different because they're faster and stronger than humans. In this trilogy, it's basically Kira's job to find out if the Partials are actually responsible for killing off the human race, or if there's some cure to the virus that keeps killing humans in this society. I really enjoyed this first book. The plot was really action-packed, and I liked seeing the relationship between Kira and all of her friends in this book. I really believed in the relationship between Kira and her boyfriend Marcus, even though Marcus didn't quite understand Kira and what she was trying to do in order to change their society. I really liked Marcus as a character. I also liked the world building in this book. It was really fascinating. Kira and her friends decide the best way to discover a way to save the human race is to find out if the Partials are actually responsible, so they decide to kidnap a Partial named Sam. I liked Kira's interactions with Sam and getting to know him as a character. I found him really interesting as well. There's some interesting things about genetic engineering in this book. Kira is definitely a relatable character, but she's also very smart. I liked that about her, and that she was an independent thinker and wouldn't let a guy or a relationship control her. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. It was really good. The next book I read was Fragments. This is the second book in the Partial Sequence trilogy. I won't give too much away since this is a sequel, but the end of the first book ended on a really interesting note. Kira ended up getting separated from her friends. So this book is about finding out more information about herself, and the majority of this book is Kira learning her identity and her purpose in her society. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I actually enjoyed it less than the first one. First off, I found that this book was too long. I felt that this book could have been about 100 pages shorter, and that there were some unnecessary scenes. I don't like it when a bunch of characters take a journey together and seeing every step of their journey. I find this part of a book boring, and that it slowed down the book for me. Also, I didn't really like the side characters in this book. They were too one-dimensional for my liking. The only thing that kept me going was Kira, and what she discovered about herself and the world in general. Because the characters took a journey in this book, I found that the pace slowed down, and then it would pick up, and then it would slow down in this book. So there was a lot of pacing issues in the second book, which I didn't like, which is also why I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The only things that I did like about this book are Kira and the world building. That's what kept me turning pages. I also didn't like the relationship in this book. I felt that so much was going on, and that at the end of the book, it was just instant love between Kira and another character in this book. And I didn't really find that believable at all. So I didn't really care for the romance in this book. Overall, I did enjoy it, but these are some of the reasons why I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Ruins. This is the final book in the Partial Sequence trilogy. In this book, the questions that Kira has about herself and how she fits into the society are answered. I liked all of the plot twists and the things that were revealed in this final book. The world developed in an interesting direction in this book, one that I wasn't expecting, but I was surprised by it. Overall, this was a great finale. I think everything tied up as it should have, except for the relationship aspect in this book. I didn't like who Kira chose to be with. I would have wanted her to be with somebody else. Other than that, I really enjoyed this book, and all the plot twists and turns that this book had. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I know in my January TBR I said that I was going to be reading the Contours of the Heart series by Tamara Weber, but I ended up changing my mind. On a whim, I decided to read another series on my Kindle. The next book I read was Bully by Penelope Douglas. This was actually a reread for me. I read this first book about a year ago. I was recently reminded about this author, and I remembered that I never continued the series, so I wanted to reread this book and see if my feelings on it had changed. I did really love Bully the second time around, and I actually changed my rating from a 3 stars to a 4 stars. This book follows a girl named Tate, who is a senior in high school. This book reads very much like a new adult book. Tate is a senior in high school. Tate and Jared used to be friends growing up, but something happened with Jared one summer when he went to visit his father, and when he came back, he was a totally different person. And since he's come back, he's treated Tate horribly. He's bullied her all throughout her years of high school. And he's bullied her so much so that Tate decided to go away to France for a year for her junior year of high school. Now that it's senior year, she's back in town, and she's determined to not let Jared ruin her senior year. But she finds that she can't get away from him. She has mixed feelings about him now, and Tate wasn't willing to put up with any of Jared's antics, even though she does somewhat have feelings for him. There were some very important scenes in this book, especially when Tate did her monologue as a class assignment. I really liked this scene in this book. While I was reading this book, I realized that there are some things that I had forgotten about Jared when I read this book the first time around, so I was reminded of those things. Also, when I first read this book, I felt that Jared's past and his story wasn't really a justification for his horrible actions towards Tate, and I didn't really feel like his actions were justified. But when I read this book a second time, I felt myself to be a little more understanding of Jared. That's why I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I also like the hate-to-love dynamic that's between Jared and Tate. There is so much tension between them throughout the entire book. Tate wants to stand up for herself against Jared, but Jared likes it when Tate is fiery towards him, so they definitely have a lot of chemistry and angst. The next book I read after Bully was Until You. This is book 1.5 in this series. This book follows the events of Bully, but from Jared's point of view. And this book isn't necessarily a retelling of Bully from his point of view, since there are extra scenes and information that we get to see that we didn't see from Bully. So I really liked this book. This book helped me understand Jared's character a lot more and what things were like from his perspective, growing up with Tate, and what his feelings were when she went away, and his reactions and his perspective when Tate returns to town. I really liked this book a little bit more than Bully. It was absolutely incredible. I liked being inside Jared's head and seeing his interactions with his best friend and other characters in this book. It was really incredible. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. Since I loved Bully so much, I decided to read the second book called Rival. This book follows Maniacal, who is Jared's best friend, and his relationship with a girl named Fallon. Maniacal and Fallon are actually step-siblings. They never considered themselves step-siblings because their parents' relationship and marriage wasn't genuine. It was all for show and image. Maniacal and Fallon lived together since her parents were married. A couple of years ago, early in their teens, they started to develop feelings for each other, and they started a relationship. But something happened to Fallon years ago, and this caused her to leave and go off to boarding school. When Fallon returns during the summer just before college, Maddox's world is completely thrown upside down. There are misunderstandings as to why Fallon left, but when Fallon returns, old feelings between them resurface, and they're back right where they started. I like seeing the interesting dynamic between them. Their relationship starts off physical. Their relationship slowly develops into something more substantial and more emotional as the book progresses. I also liked the interesting family dynamics in this book. Maniacal is rich. He has a lot of pressure from his father as to how things are supposed to be and how things are supposed to look. Family dynamics from both sides definitely play a role and definitely impact their relationship. The romance was awesome, but the family dynamics on each sides of the characters definitely pushed this book to a whole other level. And I just really liked that aspect of the book as well. We also get to see Jared and Tate reappear in the second book and how they were supportive of Matic and Fallon's relationship. The next book I read was Falling Away. This is the third book in the series. This book follows the relationship of Jackson Trent, Jared Trent's brother, who we know of from previous books in the series, and his relationship with Casey, who is Tate's best friend. I only gave this book 3 stars. This is the book that I enjoyed the least out of the series. I found that Jackson and Casey's relationship was mainly sexual and didn't really have enough substance to it. I also found that Jackson as a character was a little too stubborn at certain points throughout the book, and this annoyed me about him. I also found that there was too much back and forth and too much resistance in this relationship for me to really like it that much. Overall, I did enjoy this book, but the relationship just didn't cut it for me. Next up, I have The Next Flame by Penelope Douglas. This is the final book in the Fall Away series, and this book is actually a bind-up of books 4 and 4.5 in the series. The first book is about a flame, and a flame chronicles Jared and Tate's relationship years later, and book 4.5, which is Next to Never, which is a small novella, which introduces the next generation of characters from this series, so the children of the characters from this main series. I loved The Next Flame. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. A flame is incredible, and at the start of this book, Jared and Tate are broken up because he wasn't happy in his life and he felt trapped in a life that he didn't want. So Jared had to leave Tate in order to find out more about himself and what he wanted from life. This book, A Flame, is all about them trying to find their way back to each other. This book definitely had everything that we love about Jared and Tate that made us fall in love with these characters from the beginning. But it was interesting to see how these characters have matured over time, especially Jared. He wasn't going to be mean to her this time. Instead, he was going to let Tate come to him when she was ready. I felt that was so sweet, and I liked seeing Jared's maturity in this book. I would give this first story 5 out of 5 stars. It was amazing. I also enjoyed the small novella, Next to Never. We get to follow the main character, Quinn Carruthers, who is the little sister of Jared and Matic. Quinn is used to being in a big family with overprotective brothers. Her family loves racing, but she's always been different from her family, and she's not really sure what she wants to do with her life. Quinn has always loved Lucas, who's a side character that we've met previously in the main series. So when a mysterious package shows up at her door with no return address, she thinks that this mysterious package is from him. The package contains the manuscript of a novel that Quinn is quickly swept in. The novel follows the relationship of a certain pair of characters that readers know of if they've read the main series. I liked seeing this relationship that's explored within the novel and how this novel impacts Quinn. The novel forces Quinn to look at romance and relationships in a new way, and the novel encourages her to do what she wants with her own life, regardless of the opinions of other people around her. I found this novella really empowering, and it reminded me of a relationship between 2 other characters in this main series. I also liked being introduced to the children of the characters and seeing them as parents in this book. And I enjoyed seeing the dynamic between Hunter and Quinn in this book, and I'm curious to see if this spin-off will explore their friendship a little bit more. This novella blew me away. I would give it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved both parts of The Next Flame. It was a really great way to end the main series, as well as introduce some characters for the spin-off series. I technically finished reading The Next Flame on February 1st, but I wanted to include it in my January wrap-up anyway. Those are all of the books I read in January. I know this video was a little late, but I hope you guys still enjoyed it. If you want to watch more videos from me, I'll put some videos on the screen for you guys to check out. I hope you like those. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. I'll see you guys tomorrow with my February TBR.